Give this a sec on LinkedIn. There we go. All right, it should be starting. There's always a little bit of lag with LinkedIn. Let's give it another minute or two for folks to come on in. No point starting without new viewers. All right, here we go. So we are now live in LinkedIn. We'll wait for a couple folks to trickle in, and then I'll go around the room, make quick introductions, and we'll dive in. But we're going to get 15 folks, 17 folks. The list keeps building. We are excited to share with you guys quite a bit today on how to use AI to transform NetSuite. So by way of introduction, Louis Bala, one of the hosts here, run our sales organization over at Nuage, joined by my partner in crime, Glenn Saunders. Glenn, you want to provide a quick introduction?
COO here at Nuage, and wear a lot of different hats, and but been doing ERP and software systems for 20 plus years here, and really excited about the partnership and the relationship we have with Josh and his company, Cauzzy. I really think it's going to be transformative for businesses. AI is the hot button of what a lot of people are talking about, but I think this is where the rubber meets the road, as the saying goes, of actually delivering value and value creation for organizations using NetSuite. So I'm super excited for today and to show off what Josh and his team have built. So.
Yeah, so by way of introduction, Josh, we have so many CFOs and admins in the NetSuite ecosystem. They're all asking the exact same question. How do I actually use AI in a meaningful way inside NetSuite? Long and short, there's no easy ChatGPT button without breaking something or wasting time. But do you mind providing a quick introduction to the audience today?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me, guys. I'm very excited to talk about this, and I'm preparing to give information that I think that will be helpful for all professionals in the NetSuite space, all up and down the organization. So definitely hear what we have to say today. Sure, we'll talk about our product, but I just want to give you advice in general and give you the status of where AI is and be real with you, right? And what's fluff and what's real. By way of background, so my name's Josh Lasav. I've been in the NetSuite space for over 13 years. So Glenn, you got me beat by a couple, but I started out doing NetSuite implementations. I'm a certified NetSuite ERP consultant. I tell people I've done over 100 NetSuite implementations, and my joke is maybe that was 99 too many. But I've been around the block. Fast forward, I then got into the app side of things. I've had a couple of successful suite apps in the marketplace. And then now here we're with Cauzzy. So super excited to tell you guys about it today and kind of how we got here.
Thank you, Josh. I think, bluntly, to be honest, most of what we're seeing pitched as AI for ERP is fluff. We've seen people, whether it be on the Reddit side, trying to bolt on ChatGPT onto a dashboard, call it transformative. But if you've worked with NetSuite, it's just not that simple. NetSuite's data structure is unique, to say the least. Hoping you could share a little bit of just the complexity as it relates to NetSuite, some of the challenges, and how you all are overcoming some of that with Cauzzy.
Yeah, happy to do that. And let me start by saying the reason we created Cauzzy was to automate analysis at the C-suite level or at the management levels. And it's a function that's always been very manual. It still is manual, right? There is no solution for that, as before us. So AI has given us the ability to do something we've always wanted to do, right? My background with ERP and reporting tools and data warehouses all around NetSuite has always been getting people reports better, faster, quicker, deeper, more accurate, and people appreciate that, right? There's value in that. But that whole value is to then go give that report to someone to go analyze. You're still going to need reports. You're still going to need report tools. They aren't going anywhere. but there's a new category of tools called AI, right? Two separate things. Let's not get them confused. Let's not think one's going to replace the other. But with AI, finally, when these executives or managers are saying like, hey, can I ask questions of my data or analyze my data? I'm saying, yeah, I can automate that for you, right? That's the riskiest part of their job. It's the most time consuming part of their job. If they get it wrong, it's their career, their company's direction. If it takes too long, paralysis by analysis. And humans weren't designed to look at one report and go 50 layers deeper by looking at different periods and different slices and dices. It's too much, right? We're good at looking at like one report. So the whole dream here is, can we use AI to do that analysis? And that's kind of the scope of what Cauzzy is going to do. So some of the roadblocks or hurdles to make it possible in AI, like Louis describing, is I can't just go to AI and connect it to my NetSuite database and open up ChatGPT or whatever LLM you're using and write in a question. There's 50 reasons why, but let's stick with two big ones. Reason one, if I want to analyze this month versus last month's data in NetSuite, and I want to focus on revenue, how many transaction lines do you have in your NetSuite that are being included in that by month? So if I'm just looking at 2 months, if you're a products company, B2B or B2C, I bet you have tens of thousands. Some of you are going to have millions. If you're a software company, it just depends on your size, but you probably have thousands for sure, especially as you get into RevRec and all the journals, et cetera, et cetera. Well, AI can handle about 1,000 rows of data. And let's say you have 20 columns, right? That's its scope. That's all it can handle. So if you go to ChatGPT or Claude or any of the websites and you want to go throw in an Excel file and analyze data, you can 1,000 rows, boom, I'm done. There's a megabyte limit is really how it's defined, but rows is an easier way to talk in the NetSuite world. And that's called a context window, which is a limitation on how many tokens can work within a certain prompt within AI. So the first issue is I can't connect ChatGPT to NetSuite because it can't handle enough data to give me a meaningful insight. Could it go to my customer record and tell me what their balance is? Potentially, for sure, right? Is that really that valuable, right? Is that something I'm gonna pay a lot of money for? No, it's not. And your reporting tools are gonna have that information. So when we talk about analyzing a lot of data, we've got to figure out how to get millions and millions of rows of transactions into AI. And that's something that we've overcome to do it. The second reason you can't just connect ChatGPT or one of the other LLMs to your NetSuite data is it can't do the math accurately. So let's say you want to, we'll just keep using the same example, revenue. So we want to analyze revenue. Let's just start with a really basic revenue KPI. Total revenue, okay? So I've asked AI to say, okay, I need you to go to NetSuite and calculate total revenue. And the formula was something like sum all the invoices for these transaction dates. Well, don't I have other transaction types that hit revenue? And shouldn't I be using posting period? And should I just use an account type that equals revenue? And should I cherry pick which GL accounts do I want to use? And what if I have some custom fields that dictate what should be included? Boom, 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 boom. The list goes on. So the complexity of an ERP system is so grand that AI is not at the point where it can write the formula accurately in general, and for your specific NetSuite that's going to have customizations, custom records, fields, segments. And you can imagine how that extrapolates. I'm talking about total revenue. Imagine when you want to look at something specific to your business. Mm-hmm. This is another thing that we've overcome. It is very complicated. It's very challenging, but we did overcome it. But that is why you can't just connect any LLM to your database. There's going to be a lot of generic AI players out there who are saying like, oh, I can connect to anything and you can type in a question to get an answer. I've played with those. They have no clue. The results are wild, right? We've got to be specific to knowing NetSuite. I'll pause there for a second.
No, I mean, certainly a can of worms, in understanding everything that, I guess at the end of the day, when you're looking at what Cauzzy can do and taking it to that next level, it's not just, what's my revenue? It's what's the margin trend for this item class over the last 6 quarters, or, where are we purchasing based on historical burn rates? As you look at who this is applicable for, could you share, as you all have built out Cauzzy, who is that ideal customer or partner with you all? Who is a typical user of Cauzzy and why?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll show some real live pieces of the product today. So don't worry for those, watching. We'll get there. Don't worry. We'll show you some stuff. The user is going to be C-suite or managers. That's really who we're targeting this tool for. Those who are doing analysis and writing narratives today, typing them into decks or doing it for the business or making recommendations or predictions. It's those folks doing analysis. So definitely the C-suite, definitely the managers. What's cool about the tool is with a lot of other systems, executives don't get into it on a regular basis or don't use it much at all. And it's not a knock on those tools, but do they need to go into NetSuite every day, or are they just going to get the reports out of NetSuite?
Right.
There could be a combination. But most executives, bigger companies aren't in it. This isn't a tool designed for executives. They're going to be in this all day, every day, looking at analyses, asking follow-up questions. So it's going to be their right-hand person. I mean, I'd imagine most folks have used AI to help them write an email better, or a Word doc, or a piece of marketing content or something, right? Why would you not use AI to do your analysis better? And it's going to be the same thing. It just becomes that productivity tool, but finally a productivity tool at that manager to C-suite level.
And I guess to that point, sorry, Glenn, I was going to ask.
Go ahead.
The question everybody's gonna ask us is, what's the ROI?
I was going in the same direction. I was going to ask about the value creation aspect of what this can bring. So
yeah,
it's interesting. Most of the time we do like sales pitches to C-suite or whatever. They say that's the price. That's it. Because the ROI is not. When I automate analysis, now I'm providing insights, predictions, root cause analysis, recommendations for a business based on analyzing an area of it. Again, that's the C-suite's job. So it's not like, hey, I can go hire an FP&A associate to do this.
Right.
We've got an army of them. But these agents that we deploy are at the C-suite level too. So they think of it from an ROI perspective of, well, what's my cost? If I'm $300,000 a year or $500,000 a year, and you're doing one of the most important pieces of my job, what am I willing to pay for that? Is it 10%?
Right.
Is it 2%? Right. And we're pretty low on that end of that. So the ROI that I would see as a CEO myself is when I need to know what's going on in my business, whether it's a recurring analysis or ad hoc. I kind of mentioned this earlier, is when I start to look at my data, I'm looking for things that I've asked to see. But what if I didn't ask the right things to see, right? That's very subjective. I need to look at things holistically. So if I'm analyzing, which items are impacting my gross margin, what should my pricing strategy be? How do I improve cash flow? Let's talk about customer retention and so forth and so on. I need to look at the holistic set of KPIs that surround these questions. And then I need to look at the data comparatively, trend it, and slice and dice it a number of different ways. Now I've got a huge amount of data to look at that I can't process as a human, right? I can't process as a human, and I need to go through all of that to bubble up what's important, to find the correlations and the themes. And even if I could process it, the amount of time it would take would be monumental, and all my numbers would have changed. So I need a tool to get me, whether it's 70% of the way there or 90% of the way there or 100% of the way there, to put it in English for me. This is your question. This is your answer. What's going on in your business? this is what's going to happen going forward, and this is what you should do about it. So the CEOs and the C-suite and the managers are saying, as I said earlier, if it takes me too long, I'll get nowhere, and the numbers will change, and I won't have any action. And if I get this wrong, it's my career or it's the direction of my company. And I'm not willing to put that on the line. I need something to help me with this. So
I think a lot of people miss out on opportunity cost and the cost of a bad decision, right? And this is a tool set. We do all this FP&A work analysis, and we forget a missed opportunity, which is something you'll never uncover until you have some separate application like this. And then as well, a bad decision because you aren't looking at the data in a correct manner, understanding anomalies, understanding the statistical probability of recurring events or non-recurring events and its impact on margin and on the business. So that again, it's going to be monumental, the shift that this can bring to NetSuite customers, I believe.
Totally. And I'll give you an example too, exactly what you're describing. We have a customer whose North Star is gross margin by item. I'm sure a couple of people out there can raise their hand and say the same thing. And when the tariffs struck, they said, the CFO said to us, they said, starting on Monday, this was on Friday, starting on Monday, we've set up a war room. And our war room is going to be all of leadership, all of management. We've booked it. Everyone's schedule is cleared for a week. And the whole goal is to come out of this week with how do we respond as a business to these tariffs? And we're focused on gross margin by item. I said, well, wait a second. I can run an analysis, gross margin by item with all your data. We're already doing that. Why don't I just chat with AI and say, what would be the impact of X tariff rate? She said, can you do it at 35%? Sure. So we already had the analysis. It's already, it runs every day, right? It's automatic. So the analysis is already there, gross margin by item. All I have to do is go in and chat and say, update the insights, the predictions, and the recommendations for an estimated 35% tariff. And it came back, and all she wanted was the recommendations, and it came back with 10 strategies that she could deploy. She said some of them would have taken them all week to get to. Others need a little bit of refinement. But she said this saved us a week in my entire leadership team time and my entire management team's time. And that's the kind of value that can be done out of these tools, again, whether it's recurring or ad hoc analyses. So that's one of many use cases.
That's huge. That's monumental when you think about something as impactful as tariffs on the business.
I know, Josh, you put a couple of illustrations and have a little bit to show. Sure. We're at the 18-minute mark. Are you in a position to share a little bit for the general audience? And folks, as you have questions, please put them in the chat to make sure we get them addressed by the guru himself.
Yeah. I won't do a full demo. We don't have time. And if anybody wants a full demo, we'll talk about how to get that at the end. But I will just show a couple little nuggets to kind of wet the whistle today. So know that there's more that we're not sharing. So I am going to share my screen. Give me 1 second here, and you should see everyone's favorite PowerPoint. So can you guys see that okay?
Bear with me for 1 second. We now have it. Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. All right, I'll just show you a slide or two, and then we'll actually show some actual real stuff. But so again, we're Cauzzy. The word kind of comes from like root cause analysis, and it's all about AI-powered analysis for your NetSuite. It's on demand. We've got AI executive agents. So what that means is our agents are at the CFO level and CEO level and CRO level and COO level. Our COO level one's named Glenn, and our CRO one's named Louis. So no, I'm only kidding. And
hope not for your sake.
Yeah, no, please. People would be lucky to have that. What we're doing in the tool, and I kind of alluded to this already, is we're starting with a business question, and we're going to produce what we call artifacts. So it's analysis, it's documents, it's narratives. We'll see it in the tool in a second, but it's going to be narrative around what's going on in the business, but it's not going to be high level analysis of like your revenue increased 3% this month. Don't get fooled by those tools that's what they do. All they're doing is looking at like a chart or a graph and saying, oh, your revenue, let me turn that into a narrative. That's of no value. We're getting into the weeds. So we'll produce, and I'll show you examples again, but we're producing insights, predictions, and recommendations. And that's kind of the theme of what we would do in analysis anyway. And I'll show that in a second. The way the tool works is we've got all your NetSuite data, right? So we have access to anything, right? Custom fields, custom records, custom segments. We've got to be able to handle your customizations. So that's just how it's going to be scalable in the NetSuite community. The data is going to reconcile. It's going to refresh overnight. That stuff's bread and butter for us. We can certainly pull in other data sources too, right? If you have an external CRM or whatever the other platforms may be, as well as it could just be a CSV file. All that's going to pull into our tool, okay? And then what we're going to have is analyses. So we're going to have pre-built analyses. So and I'll show some of those today, but we've got all types of pre-built analyses. Maybe it's like around revenue or margin. Maybe it's around customers or vendors or items. Maybe it's around transactions or business process. And you can certainly build your own analyses too. And we'll continuously add more pre-builts, but people are still going to need to build their own stuff. The result of the analysis is going to be those artifacts you'll see where there's that insights, those recommendations, those predictions of my business. And then ultimately what I can do is chat with these artifacts, with these analyses to refine them or to explore them. Refining them could be like, hey, here's 3 things you didn't know that happened this month because it's not in NetSuite. Exploring could be, could you explain this a little bit further or go a little bit deeper in this area to maybe make this more concrete? Okay, so that's kind of high level what the tool does. It looks a little something like this. So I'm just in a browser. This is how you'll access it, web-based, just like any other, I'll make it full screen, but any other web-based application, username, password, 2FA, etc. But what you'll notice is we have these analyses types, right? This is going to be the consumer view. The admin view will be a little bit more robust. But we'll have these analyses types. We've got pre-built analyses, and they're in the form of a template. So any question I want to ask about my customer data, I can do that by clicking on the template, and you'll have all different types of fields you can choose to further focus how I want to analyze my customers, right? Maybe I want to look at it by my Europe customers or by class or by SKU or top 40. Right, so we've got these pre-built templates around items, around vendors, around COGS and expenses and gross margin and revenue, around purchase orders and item receipts, around sales orders and item fulfillments. So those are some of the pre-built templates. So there's 9, and we're going to continuously add more of these pre-built templates, and then you can create as many analyses off of these templates as you want. Then when I do have an analysis, let's say I want to look at top 40 customers, for example, it's going to look a little something like this. So I've structured what I want to focus on as top 40 customers, and it's going to start to produce these artifacts we're describing. So for example, what it's going to look like on the screen is it's going to include different information about the customer, right? So in this case, it's looking at an executive summary or some insights, root cause analysis around those top 40 customers. And I can certainly export this to PDF, right, in some type of presentation quality format. What's nice though is, let's say I look at this key insight right here, right? Concentration risk, Smith PLC accounts for a disproportionate share of my revenue and margin. If I copy that and I want to understand more about it, this is where I can start to chat with AI. So I could say, explain this further. I just copy paste it to make it easy. And then what it's going to do is it's going to go back into, oops, I think my screen froze. Go figure. It's going to go back into AI and actually ask that. Oh, there it goes. I think I just hit enter too many times. But it's going to go back and ask that question for me. And then it'll give me more details around that answer as well. Okay. So I think I ran this 3 times. So we may want to give it a second before it actually gives us our answer. But you can also refine via chat where you could say, here's information I have, or can you summarize this in 3 bullets? So there's a lot of refinement and exploration that we can do while that's running. It should be pretty quick, except I ran it 3 times. When you start to think about what these look like when we export them to PDF, is they're going to look a little something like this. So if I'm looking at that same analysis, top 40 customers, maybe analyzing it by total revenue across those customers, I can start to get these nice formatted documents, and you'll see kind of the level of granularity within them. So maybe I have things like key findings, right? That's pretty high level, but what I found that's important in these top 40 customers is who's showing exceptional growth and quantifying it, that I have revenue concentration risk, right? 3 customers make up 70%. I've got variation in my gross margin across these top customers. That's kind of a big deal. There's clearly leakage. I'd expect that across all my customers maybe, but not the top 40. That's interesting. I can see order values are trending positive. My customer acquisition shows promise, right? I can certainly have some supporting tables. But then I get into neatness. It's like, why? How? Right? Why is my revenue growing? Right? Product mix shifts, order volume expansion, new customer acquisitions. Why is my margin have variation in it? It has to deal with customer size correlation, product category impacts, pricing strategy, inconsistencies, et cetera, et cetera. The idea of predictions is like, what's going to happen next with these top 40 customers? What do I need to be worried about from a risk or a forecast perspective? That's what this one will then show. And then certainly we tie it all together with actionable insights, where now it's like, what do I do about this? And what are the most important things I should address, right? Address that revenue concentration risk. Let's restate what we read. Let's come up with action items and what should be my expected outcome. And again, you can chat with AI to blow this out further, pull in a case study, stuff like that, right? Implement margin improvement program, improvements, et cetera. I mentioned earlier that tariff example. So this was an example of some strategy that came back on the tariff side. Not just generic strategies, but specific to their business. Like, what should I specifically do for certain items? Obviously, it's redacted, but it's going to name specific items. What's the risk reduction impact, et cetera, et cetera. And it can also help with things like forecasting, right? I mean, this was for a customer back in December who wanted to start building their budget or annual operating plan for 25 and said, hey, by month, can you break out revenue? Show me quantity sold, break it out by channel. And then ultimately include all the assumptions that will support that, whether it's high-level assumptions or channel-specific assumptions or item rate assumptions, and then all types of risk factors and variances that we could run further scenarios off of, et cetera. So there's a lot we can do, whether it's ad hoc or recurring.
Right.
But, yeah.
The analysis you just did, I just did, and tried to load like our P&L up into ChatGPT just to play around with it, somewhat in anticipation for this, but also just for fun. And was like, okay, so what happens if revenue increases this? No, I want it to be more scaled over a 36-month period. How much do I have to increase to get to X? And, it gives the analysis, but it's still not realistic tied to the transactional root data, because it doesn't have the ability to understand the underlying principles that are driving the data. So that's super cool.
Totally. Yeah, it was always a dream to do analysis for folks because it was always so asked, and it's such a hot button for C-suite management. So the fact that we can do it now is really cool. I do want to set the expectation though, like in our tool, it's not like ChatGPT where you can just type in a question and it gives you the answer. I don't know if AI is going to get there anytime soon. I mean, that's a leap, a big leap. So that's why we've got this process of templates and analyses. But that way
we have to normalize the data to some respect to be able to make sense out of it for sure. Otherwise, it's like asking anybody off the street without financial information. It doesn't know business. You have to train it a little bit.
Totally. And the key thing is, like, as soon as you show an incorrect number, no one trusts the tool, right? So we have to do some pre-processing, if you will, to make sure our numbers are accurate. And that's always top of mind. And that's how we come at this, is accuracy first, answer second.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Josh, we certainly appreciate it. We're up at the end of our live session. If anybody has any questions, I've got one in here. Sounds like AI is not advanced enough yet for full-blown data analytics. If when do you think AI will get there? It sounds like you've kind of covered that already with your Cauzzy solution.
Yeah, I guess the answer I'd say there is we're doing it in Cauzzy, so I'm not fully sure I understand the question. If you're talking about like when will ChatGPT get there, the answer is it won't. It's never going to get there until it's dedicated to a data source. Simple data sources may get there, but complex data sources where you've got a customized environment, they'll never get there. They'll never understand. I shouldn't say never. It's unlikely to get there anytime soon, because how are they supposed to understand your customizations? So we've got the platform to solve the problem that you're asking about. We've got the platform to understand your unique requirements in your NetSuite. But yeah, a generic off-the-shelf tool is not going to get there anytime soon.
So how do I get this plugged into my NetSuite instance? Because I also do all the finances for Nuage. So.
Fair question. So yeah, certainly if you guys want more information, if you want a demo, we'd love to show one to anyone who's interested. You can always reach out to Nuage and they can help coordinate, especially if you're a customer of Nuage's. You can also go to our website. It's Cauzzy.ai, and there's a demo request form. So you can just fill it out and we'll contact you and we'll set up some time to chat through your business. If you are not C-suite or managers, my advice would be bring this to them. I think they'll be pretty happy that you thought about them and brought this to them. If you are C-suite or managers, let's definitely set up some time to chat.
Yeah, I think, Josh, the last question I had for you, as far as validating accuracy of the data, synthesizing everything, putting into the right templates, what is a typical project usually run from start to finish to actually, leveraging the application?
Right now, like give yourself to like create, if let's say you want to have like a brand new business question analysis, give yourself a day to just get it, make sure it's all right. That'll come down with time as we can build in more AI to facilitate the process. But I think somewhere around a day is a good amount of time. And then once you build that analysis template once and can do any analyses off of it, those are just instant.
Well, fantastic. Well, we certainly appreciate you spending some time with us today. To the audience, thank you for tuning in. And we will hopefully talk to you soon. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Josh, Glenn, myself, and we hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks again, Josh.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Larry.